I was talking with an artist friend of mine recently, and she shared with me that she was feeling a bit directionless as an artist, and kind of it as I was talking to her, it became clear that she was going through this transition between being a beginner and kind of following along with courses and tutorials and doing a lot of exercises, to being more of an intermediate or even advanced artist, and feeling a bit unsure about how to proceed. And she also shared with me that she feels like she's always doing exercises and doesn't really know how to make that jump to making drawings or making pieces for herself, or that it's more self-directed, that it says something that she wants to say, or present some visual idea that she wants to share. And I've struggled with that as well, and we both agreed that those exercises are something that obviously always continues and maybe even becomes more frequent as you get more experienced as an artist. You become kind of more interested in the nuances of those exercises, and really digging into smaller details of your technical skills, or just staying kind of in shape by repeating exercises and going back to those fundamentals that help us simplify and to see more clearly and to move our hands fluently. But yeah, there was this question of, okay, now what? If I'm going to continue my practice, but how else do I grow as an artist, as a draftsperson? We could expand into other mediums, but there was this question of, moving from exercises to making pieces, making art, was a little bit scary. Where the purpose isn't just to practice a skill, but um, it's to express something or say something, or whatever it is that we want to say, through the skills that we've developed. And I think that that's a really mysterious part of growing as an artist, and we don't really talk about it much as artists. We focus a lot on drawing skills or painting skills, color theory, kind of the knowledge of what's in our head, how to see different ways, how to move our hands, but that layer of the heart, what do we desire to say? What do we desire to make? What kinds of questions do we want to explore through our drawing, or what our art skills in general? I think that is a topic that we just don't talk about very much with each other. And so I thought it might be helpful, just as a way to start that conversation. My idea is to share a few series of work that I've made in the past couple of years, and just talk through the story of how they happened. My art teacher, John Gordon, I remember we were sitting in the classroom and there was a student who was very clearly struggling, not happy with their work. And he said to them, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about making art? And the student said, yes. And John said, don't. Art just happens. And I thought that was really beautiful and encouraging. And it points to the sense of, like, if I'm going to sit down and say, like, okay, I'm not doing an exercise right now, I'm going to make art, I'm going to make a drawing, I'm going to make a piece. I don't know. I think I'm going to get stuck really fast. I'm going to get really discouraged, because that's a lot of pressure. And maybe you don't know, like, even what you want to say or what your goals are, as an artist. And maybe you don't have a vision of, like, exactly what you want to make when you sit down to draw. And you have to kind of figure it out as you go. And I think by sharing the story behind some of these series, I think that maybe having some examples will make that clearer of how that actually happens. If art just happens, well, I don't know how does it happen. um, so yeah, let me switch over. Yeah, so let me switch over to another view here. I'm just gonna walk through a few series and just kind of reflect on them a little bit. I'll admit I don't have a script or a plan for exactly what I'm going to say here, so bear with me. But I'm hoping that this is encouraging in some way for you, as if you're an artist of any skill level, to look behind the scenes of how art happens beyond the kind of technical process. Okay, so where do I want to start? So one example, this is a sketch, and I think one way that art happens is as we're doing our kind of like daily sketching, or weekly sketching, however often you draw. Sometimes a drawing just kind of goes well, and it's like, I kind of like that, or it has a certain quality to it, and I I think that's where a lot of series or collections start. This was just a sketch that I was sketching in my studio as a practice for a portrait class, and yeah, it's pretty small, and it was on like a bigger sheet of drawings, but I kind of liked the composition and the design of it, so I cut it out. And there's even like another portrait in the corner, but yeah, I just cut it out and framed it, and I, there was just quality about it that I liked. And this isn't like, there wasn't anything I was trying to say about this. It's not a particularly like an incredible display of technical skill. There was just something that I liked about it, and I wanted to preserve that, and kind of take it out of the sketchbook and make it so that I could put it on a wall if I wanted to, or I don't know, sell it or put it in a show or do something with it. I wanted it to not just be kind of tucked away. So that's one thing, is like our exercises are just going to continue anyway. So we can harvest basically from the best of what we make. Let's see. Yeah, so this series, this was just 3 portraits. And um, I just wanted to practice a new technique that I was experimenting with using a brush with charcoal powder and chalk, powdered chalk. And I had experimented with this a little bit on different papers, and I wanted to try it on this toned paper, just a gray paper. And I found a great, photo reference set online from Draw Brighton. And yeah, I kind of liked these 3 portraits together. And I think I did I can't remember which one I did first, actually. But whatever it was, I made one and kind of slept on it and came back to it the next day. And I was like, oh, I want to do a couple more of these, just because I really like the effect. And yeah, and all of a sudden it kind of felt like a series. And as I kind of finished the first 2, I thought, okay, what would be a third piece that would kind of complement the other 2? So that if they were displayed side by side, well, they're kind of unified already by their size and their and the subject, but compositionally, how can I visually tie them together as a series? And so yeah, I didn't mean to make like a trio of portraits that I would be happy to put on a wall. I was just trying to experiment with this new technique, and it went well. And it became something that I wanted to share and kind of give the series a name. I think I titled this series Dryad. I'll talk a little bit more about naming and titling collections, but yeah, so all 3 of these pieces sold, which was great. And I think that was the other thing I wanted to experiment with here, was like, how can I make portraits that are not personal portraits, like a portrait that somebody might want to collect and hang in their home, even if it's of a person that they don't know personally. I think that's kind of a tricky balance to strike in the composition of a portrait. And so that's something I wanted, that is a goal that I had. I wanted to achieve that, or try out different approaches to that. And that, yeah, that was kind of another idea in the back of my head as I was working on these. Let's hop over here. So this series here of these 7 still lives, this was a series called Material Components, that was in an exhibit I organized last fall of 2024. And I think that this is a really interesting story of how this emerged, because so way back in 2019, I made this very small still life, and this was just like a sketch. Like I was at home, which felt like painting, and yeah, I painted this egg and I put it on this marble slab that we had, and that was it. I really liked the result. I liked the organic nature of the marble as a background, and but other than that, it was just kind of practice, just kind of sketching in oil. A few years later, I probably 2022 or something, like years later, I kind of continued that theme. I hadn't been back to it really, and I made a couple more, like again, very small still life oil sketches, but using the same marble background. I must have been just thinking back to that initial sketch that I did and thought, yeah, let me try doing that again. And then we moved, and I started collecting interesting things we would go on these walks or out in our neighborhood, and I started just like collecting this feather and leaves that I liked, this piece of oak, a rose from our garden, some pine cones. You can see them here, some of them here. And I kind of had this idea of yeah, painting, like I play a lot of D&D, and so I wanted to paint like portraits of, well, they're still lives, but yeah, basically portraits of spell components. And so as I was collecting these things, I was like, oh, these are really beautiful. They're all about the same size. And I think I painted the feather first, and it, I just had that marble slab, put it on top of it, painted it, and I was like, oh yeah, I really like that. And I just kind of let that sit for a month or so. And then I started to think about putting on a show, an exhibit. I wanted to put on an exhibit, and I thought, oh, what if I made a whole series of these? And I had all the stuff here. Like I had all the stuff collected. I had the marble, and so I just went for it. And I made a series following this kind of template, or pattern that I really liked. And I think that is, again, I didn't intend to do that. I didn't intend way back in 2019 to make a series that uses marble as a unifying element. But it was this kind of thread that grew over time. And eventually everything kind of came together as a repeatable pattern that I felt like I had everything I needed to make a whole series out of it. But I didn't do it on purpose. It kind of marinated from random experiments for many years. 2019 to 2024 is 5 years of just kind of letting it sit and thinking about it. So sometimes it happens fast, like these portraits, it was over, maybe a couple days that I made these, and it just kind of flew by. And, this took many years to kind of come to fruition. Um, yeah. I think the other thing that helped here was I was committed to a showing, to an exhibit. And so I had this commitment where these ideas had been percolating for a long time, developing slowly in my head, and all of a sudden it was like, oh well, I have this opportunity to have an exhibit and to show a whole collection of my work. Now's the time, right? Like the conditions are correct for this collection to happen, and so I think sometimes it doesn't have to happen this way, but sometimes committing to something, committing to a show or committing to apply to a show, it kind of prompts these ideas that are there anyway, and like maybe you're thinking about them but haven't really acknowledged them fully. I think that can kind of pull them out of us, and create the conditions where they can actually happen. Um, Yeah, let's see. The other thing that I really like doing is playing with graphic design with a collection. So if I maybe I have like a scattering of drawings in my studio, and I think they kind of go together, but I'm not really sure how. I might kind of switch my brain into a graphic design mode. I was a graphic designer for part of my career, and I still really love graphic design. And so I thought, you know, maybe I can think through my own creative framing of my work by creating a poster for the collection. Whether I use that poster for anything or not, that's a separate question. But just as an exercise, thinking visually outside the work around the art, I think sometimes that can help us understand our own work a little bit better by imagining how we would present it to the world, and not just keep it in our studio. Um, Yeah, okay, so this is a more recent series from just this past year. But I went to a figure drawing class at a local museum, and I also had this new set of sanguine sticks. And I had always really wanted to try sanguine, and I had like a couple pencils, but they didn't really work for me. And so I got these kind of like thicker sticks of sanguine. And I took them with me to this figure drawing class. I don't know. I just had them in my little art pack, and I made this sketch, like this like quick study of these arms, and I really loved the pose and the energy of the arms, and especially combined with the sanguine, and the contrast of the red of the medium with the kind of bright white of the paper. And again, I let this sit for a few months, and I just kind of thought about it, and it was kind of laying in my studio. And then I thought, okay, well, I did something like this a while back for these collections, and what if I like, what would this collection be if I were to turn this into a collection? And so I just kind of like mocked up a little bit of a graphic design. I don't know if I can explain where the title Red Mage came from. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think I was just thinking about things, and like, who might this character be? I thought these arms kind of looked like I don't know, some sort of sorceress, or casting a spell of some kind, using your arm movements to symbolize something. And it's red, so maybe that's where it came from, Red Mage. And yeah, and then over the summer, I just kept kind of I eventually had some time in the studio to follow up on that initial sketch that, again, just kind of happened by accident. It was just because I happened to have the materials with me at this figure drawing session. I didn't plan to take them with me. They just were in my bag. And so, yeah, and I didn't plan on that pose, or I didn't plan on doing an arm study, but I really liked the result. And so in the studio, I kept working from photo reference, and these are quite full size sheets, 18 by 24 inches. And I was like, okay, what happens if I take this further? What happens if I continue down this path? And I kind of kept at it all summer. And I made some full figure drawings, a lot of studies, full 18 by 24 studies and smaller studies. And I was thinking about style. I was referencing figure drawings that I admired, and trying to learn from that style and seeing like what happens if you translate some of that approach to sanguine. So often we see figure drawings in charcoal, and yeah, so I was experimenting here, and I didn't really know where it was going to go, but I made a bunch of these. There's probably 8 to 12 kind of studies and figure drawings in the series. And some of them are small, small eyes, and hands and things like that. But yeah, and it just kind of again emerged in the studio over the summer. It wasn't something that I sat down and was like, okay, I'm gonna make exactly 12 of these type of drawings, and 3 of these size, and has to tell exactly this story, and yeah, at the end, I kind of looked back and said, okay, this is a series, and I kind of had it in mind at the beginning, but I didn't know where it was going to go. And that led to this, which I had this again. So this goes back to the marble. I was painting with marble as a background, and I also had this small 4 by 4 inch marble tile. I had collected it many years ago. I was just kind of, I don't know, interested in tiles and different tile types. And so I had a sample, and I thought, well, I really like marble as a textural background in a painting. What would happen if I drew on the marble and just used the marble itself as a surface? And so I had my sanguine. I had been drawing these eyes at that time, and I thought this is about the same size as my little eye studies. And so, yeah, I don't know what would happen. And at first, it did not work. The marble was way too smooth. I just couldn't draw on it. And I tried even like a few different compositions on the marble, and it didn't really work. And eventually I realized I could use sandpaper to adjust the surface of the marble and get it to the right texture where I could actually draw on it. And that was, really exciting. And I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, I don't know if this feels new. I don't know if this is part of the series that I'm working on, or if this is the start of something new. And I think that there's a book that I really like called Everlasting Meal, and it's about cooking. And the idea is you can take something from what you made the night before or for the previous meal and use that as a starting point for the next meal. And by doing that, we can kind of have this flow of in that case, meals or cooking in the kitchen, that everything kind of grows out of something that already exists. And I think that's, if you're practicing art, I think that is one of the ways that art happens is we have these threads that kind of come out of nowhere almost, or something that happened years ago. And we can pick up on that again really at any time when our kind of curiosity returns to it or the stars align, and turn it into something new. And so I kept going down this path, and I thought, it'd be cool to do some figure drawings on stone. I was at Goodwill, and I just happened to find, I had just finished this drawing on marble, and I happened to find these 4 stone, I think they're actually candle holders. They're just like little stone pedestals. And I was like, oh, this is the exact same size as the marble that I was drawing on. I bet I could draw on these too. So I, took them home, and I was like, okay, let me do a little, like a little compositional sketch, because they're very small, and so it's hard to draw a figure 4 inches by 4 inches. So I thought, let me do a little sketch, because then I can kind of work out the problems of this size. But I had 4 of them, so I was like, well, I might as well make 4 of them, because it's a little mini series. So in this case, it was like I didn't go to Goodwill thinking that I was gonna find these stones, and what I found, what I collected, kind of prompted a collection. I had 4 of them. Let's make 4 of them. And I had this idea that, it would be cool to try doing a figure. So that I really enjoyed doing that. I made 4 of these, and then I thought, let's do it again. So I got some slate samples, and went through the same process again. I was like, that was too much fun. I just want to do it again. And so now I have these kind of small stone drawings, and I really want to do more of this. You can actually see my marble slab in the background that I used as a background in my paintings so many years ago. So yeah, I hope that that's helpful, but I hope that the thread that, partially this is an excuse for me to share my work, but I hope that the thread that comes through is, with all of these collections or series, I didn't plan on any of it. Like, I didn't know what I was doing ever. I was just kind of following things that I found interesting, things I wanted to try. And I did need at times to give myself some courage, some bravery to try something new, like drawing on stone, where I have no idea how it's going to work out. But I think I felt that way at the beginning of all of these, is like, I don't know how to draw with sanguine. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I'm only showing you the stuff that survived, right? Like, there were so many drawings that didn't work out. And I had to, kind of try it again. Just kind of follow that thread of curiosity. And also let things take as long as they need to, let things marinate, and slowly kind of grow in the back of my head over time, until I have an opportunity, like committing to a show that's like, okay, let's make this series because I need stuff to put on the walls, or let's make this series because I have 4 stones and I might as well make 4 of them. And yeah, I think maybe something that is a bit unique is this sense of making graphic design to go with your work. And I'd encourage you to try it, even if you don't have graphic design experience. I think there's something that Teresa Oaxaca said, who is an oil and charcoal artist, and many different mediums, but kind of known for her oils and charcoal. She said something in an interview about something like, you have to have a movie in your head playing of your work, of your paintings, your drawings, and she called it a tableau vivant, which is a like a it was like a play, but there would be characters kind of posed on stage in costumes, and kind of imagining your work in this cinematic world with stories, even if you're not explicitly writing down a story, but imagining characters and this world that they inhabit, kind of just daydreaming in the background. And yeah, just kind of letting yourself live in that world, and then paying attention to what actually shows up on the page as you're just exploring and doing studies, or painting in the studio or at life drawing. That's something that I think has really, really helped me. So, um, yeah. So I don't think that what I've shared is something that works for everybody. I think art happens in many different ways, but I also know that if we try to force it to happen, we're just going to get frustrated. And I think most of the time we have no idea what we're doing when we start doing it, and all we can do is kind of pay attention to those moments where something interesting happens, and we weren't expecting it, but we kind of like it, or it's intriguing in some way, or pay attention to those questions that we don't know the answer to, but we want to spend some time exploring, and maybe we'll never get to an answer. But through the process of exploring those questions, we can at least share a collection of our work that we made as a result of that. So, encourage you to try it. Let me know in the comments if any of this is useful. I think at this point I'm supposed to say don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.